Thank you for joining Inside the Room with myself, State Representative Brandon McGee, where we discuss politics, leadership, and culture. I know the setup is a little different, y'all, but I am obviously inside the room with a group of amazing people, and I wanted to take a different turn and talk a little bit about some of the more current affairs that's been happening throughout this country. We know that in the midst of this year's most important trial, Inside the Room will dedicate, again, this episode, podcast episode, to discuss the Derek Chauvin Trial and the impact of racial justice as it relates to the killing of George Floyd back in 2020. So during today's discussion, you're gonna hear it all. We're gonna do our best to unpack the entire trial, give you some high-level moments, but I quickly want to drive into hearing from my special guest that I will introduce shortly. We'll also talk a little bit about DMX. This week, DMX, he died at the age of 50, and I want to talk a little bit about where we are in terms of giving people, black folk, their flowers while they are alive. I'm seeing a lot of these YouTube and Facebook, Instagram posts about rest in heaven, rest in peace, and I'm like, yo, it was just 2 weeks ago. We didn't even hear about what was happening with DMX, but I digress until that time, and we'll talk a little bit about it. So as always, join me in gathering people from all walks of life to step inside the room to help educate and uplift our communities. As always, I seek to frame or preface our conversations with a quote, and I am remaining true to that. And I have one that I feel that's extremely poignant for today's podcast episode. And again, thank you to all of you that are listening on FUBU Radio, following me on Instagram, on Twitter, all of the social media platforms. I can't thank you enough. I quote, "To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time." And that was quoted by the renowned author and novelist James Baldwin. McGee's commentary would be to be a black man, not singling out our black women, but to be a black man in this country, in this world, you are in constant fear, you are in constant frustration and wondering, am I doing what's right to be approved by society? But guess what? As black men, we're gonna keep on rocking on, we're gonna support each other, we're gonna uplift our black women, and most importantly, we're gonna provide examples to all of our young people that look to us. So let's just jump right into today's discussion in terms of the Derek Chauvin trial. And I'm specifically emphasizing the importance of naming what the trial is. Some people have said, oh, this is the George Floyd trial. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's the man who killed George Floyd. It's his trial. And so with me today, I have some really, really smart, very active, young people. I don't know how young they are, but young folk who are at the forefront of the social justice movement, been walking with me throughout my journey, and they're going to share a little bit about, from their perspective, where we are with this particular case and how we plan to move forward. So having said that, we have to my right, and while you view your left, we have Miss Brianna Johnson. She's the community director, or communications director. We know you love the community. Yeah, communications director for the firm. Immediately across from her, we have Mr. Isaiah Grant. He's a leftist, a TikTok phenomenon. He does all this great stuff. He'll be able to unpack what that actually means. I'm digging your hair, by the way, too.
Thank
I
you.
like that. It's like a mint green, little mustard in there. I like that. And then lastly, in the middle, we have Mr. Daniel White, who is the director of marketing at the firm, and also a recently nominated or sworn in senator of the Multicultural and Diversity Center there at UConn, which is the University of Connecticut here in the state of Connecticut. So welcome, y'all. Welcome to Inside the Room. This is actually, to be honest with you, this is our first time that we're really low-key, we're chilled out. I'm not all suited and booted, and we're just chilling. But this is a really serious topic, and I'm really glad that you all are here to sort of weigh in on the conversation. So just quickly, for those of you that are listening, that are watching, we know that the killing of George Floyd in May of 2020, literally, it'll be a year in a few weeks, it set off a worldwide sort of series of protests. Protests that we all participated in, whether we were at the forefront or organizing. We were a part of that very immediate response to a long history of injustices that our people had been faced with. What was different is that we literally saw right before our eyes the life being taken away from George Floyd. And that was in Minneapolis, to be exact. It really it provided, especially myself as an elected official, an opportunity to really be on the ground level with many of our activists that had been literally crying out to politicians and policymakers to say, we need change in our judicial system. We need change in terms of police officers understanding training and being culturally competent in the communities that they are to protect and serve. And so last year, along with my colleagues, I had the opportunity to help pass a piece of legislation that would help move us toward that place of justice in the judicial system. So we all know that Chauvin, all right, the man who killed George Floyd, he kneeled on the neck of George Floyd for about 8 minutes and 46 seconds as he basically fought for his life. And we know now during this trial that the jury will consider whether Chauvin's use of force, exceeded what was necessary to make the arrest of George Floyd, constituting murder or manslaughter. All right, and I want to quickly just run through the recap, and then we're going to jump into a little bit of Q&A and have an informal conversation. So we know, and you can easily Google this, y'all. This is one of the most, I think, watched trials, other than O.J. Simpson, in the world. The world has its eyes on our country, on how we will handle this in an era of equality and equity in our judicial system. And so here's a quick recap. We know on March 29th, there were opening statements that were provided. March 30th, all witnesses sort of share their story, literally watching Floyd die before their eyes. March 31st, jurors shown extended, intense officer body cam video where they literally show from the officer's perspective what was happening. So you saw that. April 1st, a police supervisor kind of gives his account in terms of the force on Floyd and where it went wrong. His girlfriend testifies, paramedics, they testify. April 2nd, Minneapolis Police Department homicide chief says officers' use of force was uncalled for. And then, April 5th through the 7th, it ranges between all of these testimonies and folks kind of giving an account on what's actually happening during that time. So, they tried to accuse the Floyd of, the usage of methamphetamine and pre-existing conditions, and that attributed to his death. And quite frankly, it's all BS. So anyway, I am going to cut to the chase, and I really want to provide each of you an opportunity to just, what's your initial response to this, right? We literally have gone through an entire year, almost in May, of killings. George Floyd wasn't the only one that was literally murdered before our eyes, right? We can name about 20 of them. And then there are probably thousands of those that we can't even account for, right? What were your initial, and by the way, I've yet to watch the video because I can't. I'm not prepared. And even when I begin to talk about it, I get a little emotional because literally we're watching this man and you can hear people behind the camera saying he can't breathe. Let up. What are your initial reactions to that? I'll start with you, Isaiah.
It's honestly kind of scary. You know what I mean? Whenever I haven't watched the full video either. I watched enough. I watched probably a 30-second to a minute clip within this year where he's calling out for his mom. Mother. Yeah.
Yep.
And whenever I see somebody who looks similar to me, and I see that they're getting this treatment because this person looks similar to me, it's scary, and it's something that's ridiculous. I don't get why it happens. You know what I mean? It's like we're about 50, 60 years past segregation laws and everything like that, and we still haven't moved past police killing people in the streets. Or not just killing people in the streets, but hurting people, harassing people. And oftentimes when I see people talk about police brutality, I don't actually, not just the African American community gets affected by this, everybody does. So I don't understand why it's like this crazy back and forth debate. Everybody's getting hurt by this, you know what I mean? We're disproportionately getting hurt by it, but everybody gets hurt by this.
So let me ask you, Brianna, what was your initial response to this after seeing it, and now we're a year later having to go through a trial to prove what we saw?
I feel like this trial is one definitely triggering, simply because this did not happen that long ago. When I first saw the video, all I could really think about was his family. And in my mind, I already knew, which I'm generalizing, but I already knew it feels like they're not going to get the justice that they deserve because of the many cases, the many trials that have gone on before in which these families didn't get the justice. I mean, they've gotten, paid. However, at what expense to how much is someone's life worth? And when I found out, I think we didn't find out a few days later until after the video, where we found out that it was over a $20 counterfeit $20 bill, and you're like, really?
But does it surprise you when literally the guy, forgive me, but in New York he was sort of the first one, Eric Gardner. Yeah. I mean, they killed didn't they kill him over a cigarette?
A cigarette.
A Lucy.
That's almost similar to bring it closer to home. Right in Manchester, we had Jose Soto, who was killed, shot to death right in front of his mother's home for missing curfew.
Wow.
And it's in the middle of COVID, and it's was it necessary? And so it just when we're seeing videos like this over, I'm not to discount, the illegality of it.
That's right.
But it's over a $20 counterfeit bill. We had to kill another person, another man, and it's really difficult. This his daughter, his children are going to grow up without him because of a $20 counterfeit bill.
Yeah. Well, literally the visual of seeing their father.
Lynched.
Daniel, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't even know where to start. I remember watching the video.
Yep.
Waking up around 9, taking out my phone first thing. I'm 17. First thing I do in the morning, take out my phone and look at it, and seeing a man laying on the floor with a knee on his neck, and I'm confused. Right? I go through all of my friends' story. I'm confused. Why is there a black man that looks like me,
and several white officers
surrounding him, and one man has a knee on his neck? I finally get a chance to watch the video later on that day, and watching, you know, a man lose his life in front of my eyes is, to this moment, one of the most traumatizing things I've ever seen. Because, you know,
sorry.
I know it gets good. Like it gets to a place where you can't help but to jump in.
Sorry, just to tap off of what you're saying. And because we have a platform, social media, where we're sharing this video over and over and over again, it's become normalized.
Yeah.
It almost became like people were desensitized from seeing this video, sharing this video, not realizing, like you said, the impact that it's going to have on his daughter who's viewing this.
Yeah, I think, you know, black trauma, especially, you know, over the past year, the past few months, especially starting with that George Floyd stuff, has become kind of, you know, the new way to get likes. Yeah. Black trauma has become like the new way to, you know, gain attention. Yeah. And, you know, I think what people are missing, a lot of people are missing, is, you know, this is real for us. Yeah. Seeing George Floyd die, that's real for us. Absolutely. Hearing stories about Breonna Taylor, that's real. Elijah McClain, that's real for us. Because that could be our cousin, that could be our brother. That could be us. And so I think that, you know, a lot of, you know, modern society has desensitized from it and pulled away because they don't see themselves in what's happening. Yeah. But I feel like us, you know, in the black community, it's our mirror image.
So switching gears, I read that the actual attorney, or perhaps the judge, here, let me make sure I'm reading my notes correctly, in a filing last fall, Chauvin's attorney, he disclosed that Chauvin argued, or rather the attorney, argued that Chauvin was not actually guilty. He, in fact, acted in self-defense and utilized the training that the Minneapolis Police Department upholds as their policy. And the technique used was, in fact, appropriate. Talk to me a little bit. Go ahead, Isaiah.
So, I don't know how it's considered self-defense when it's a man handcuffed and you're killing him for 9 minutes. You are killing him for 9 minutes straight.
But usually, though, the technique that they use, it is supposed to encourage compliance, right? And once the person complies with what the officer is saying, then you reward them with, okay, let me reduce the pain that I've induced on you, so because you're cooperating. Well, that didn't happen, right?
Yeah, no, that didn't happen. And like
self-defense. With 4 officers.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, we keep cutting you off. Sorry. That's how you talk inside the room, you know. Go ahead.
But I've done martial arts for a little bit. I've been doing it for probably like 2 years now. Like I learned wrestling in high school, and then I learned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the one thing is like, you can make somebody hurt without killing them, without using their neck, you know what I mean? Yeah. We got limbs, you know what I mean? We got legs, we got all types of points where it doesn't really feel great to, push in the wrong direction. So I don't understand how it's like, oh, like this is this thing where it's like a reward system, like you can let off. You don't need to hurt somebody, or you don't need to like use their neck to basically kill them. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't really make much sense to me. There's like a gazillion other, like there's literally like a million other ways you can go, and he chose that one, dude. Kneel on his neck for 9 minutes. Yeah. I don't. It's crazy.
So if you're just tuning in to Inside the Room, I'd love for you to just drop some questions and let's start a conversation on the trial. I know we're still in the thick of it. I've read actually that this will probably go well into April or toward the end of April. But I want to have a conversation with you. So drop some of those questions and commentary, and we'll get back in touch with you. So just to continue on the conversation, George Floyd, but specifically on the Chauvin trial, I kind of want to ask each of you a 2-for-1 question. Right, it's the same question, but you just give me from the heart, like where you are, and I really want to start with you because I think clearly, you know, one might suggest that you are a Latino or you are of some other racial ethnicity sort of makeup, and you're biracial, you're white and black, right? As a Gen Z, so we have millennials and Gen Z represented inside the room today. Where do we go from here, right? What does your activism look like? Is it a tweet? Is it an Instagram post? Is it a TikTok? Or is it a combination of utilizing these platforms to speak your power to power, right? Your truth to power, and figure out, like, how do we move the needle forward? There's so much in this conversation that we can unpack, but I really want to hear from you all. Like, where are you in all of this? And also, the second part to that question, once we reach a verdict, how do we respond to that? Because there's the negative sort of, it is what it is. It's gonna, it's the system. They're gonna go in his favor because they might err on the side of, well, we gave them money. Let's make sure he has his life. Let's not ruin two families, right? How do we prepare for what will be said whenever that verdict comes out? And I want each of you to answer that. Go ahead, Isaiah.
So for
really quick, because we don't have too much time.
Yeah. So for the first part, I think that it is actually good to go on social media and kind of, let everybody know how you feel on it. But it's really hard. You know what I mean? It's hard to pin down because on one hand you have, Facebook, you have conservatives
Yep.
spewing out a bunch of nonsense.
Fake news.
Yeah, but I think what we need to do as kind of like content creators and tweeters and all that.
Yeah.
I think we need to make it more like kind of popularized and normalized. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you guys scroll through TikTok, but it's just a bunch of lip singing and bunch of dancing and stuff. I think that's good. Let's add your politics to that. You know what I mean? I don't do that necessarily, but I think we need to kind of
be a bit more intentional.
Exactly,
because platforms.
We need to reach out to the younger people as well. There's a lot of people.
So are you suggesting that we get rid of sort of the door-to-door operations that during the 60s, which I think is an example that people can relate to easily, where they called it leaflets, we call it flyers, right? And they're going out doing that. The Montgomery bus boycott, right? It was a campaign to speak against the injustices that was happening in the Montgomery transportation system. How in the hell you gonna tell me I can't ride on the front of the bus? Or in fact, I can ride, but if a white person get on, I gotta move to the back, right? Are you saying that direct advocacy is out the door and we need to focus primarily on the technology piece and really enhancing that? Or are you saying it's a combination of sorts?
I think everything.
Got it.
With these types of things, we need to fight tirelessly. We need to keep on going on every single front that we can, you know what I mean?
Okay,
on random things like TikTok, Reddit, like who cares, you know what I mean? We need to.
That was also a part of one of our episodos, but keep going. I'm glad you listening to Inside the Room. Just say you did. No, sir.
But we need to get everything that we can. With the personal door-to-door thing, I think that we can do that online. You can make your platform personable, you know what I mean? We're doing right now, you know what I mean? We're being ourselves. This isn't scripted or anything.
Nope.
This is we're doing our thing. I think that it's that's the way to go. Just do everything, even door-to-door, even media.
Got it.
Definitely, and to Isaiah's point, don't be afraid to do the work. Don't be afraid to put your head.
What does that mean, though? Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid to put your head to the ground. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Represent what you believe.
Absolutely.
Yes. I know some of the folks who are helping us behind the scenes brought up a very valid point, right? We just pick up stuff off of social media and we will share in a split second without reading, doing our homework, self-fact checking what we are reading to ensure that it's actually true.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just want to make sure, folks understand, especially our young people, make sure you do your homework to ensure what you're sharing to the masses on social media, it's accurate.
Definitely.
Right? So doing the work requires doing the
homework.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Looking into what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Making sure what you're saying is factual. Making sure what you believe is actually true.
Yep.
Not just picking it up and putting it out.
What would you say the response will be, or how should we respond to whatever the verdict is?
I'm still processing that in this moment.
That's valid.
We've seen it.
Yeah.
Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor case. They settled. The family got a settlement.
Yeah. I don't know. There's like two sides to me. There's one side that's preparing myself for the worst.
Yeah.
There's another side of me that's saying,
Woosah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm literally. It's almost like you're the social worker here, so I don't want to mischaracterize a disability that's unfair to a person who actually has it, but I feel like there are multiple sort of persons in me. I don't want to claim that it's bipolar, but it's just
multiple perspectives.
Yeah, and it's almost exhausting.
Yeah.
Because you try to weigh and uphold both of them because they mean something to you. So what are your thoughts on the last two questions?
Well, in the age of COVID, especially because we are using social media for everything, like Brandon said before, I think that we need to be very intentional with our posting. What we're putting on social media, I think that we have to spread the word and educate the people that don't know and have difficult conversations like this. Not to say if you're having a game night, you need to always talk about this trial, but sometimes maybe you just need to dedicate some time to really talk about, because you can add perspective and change perspective, and just also just not being afraid to, when after you post that post, going out there and figuring out which way you can help. And for me, I'm not one to want to be in the forefront. Like I'm probably
Which I'm so proud of her that she's actually inside the room on the other side of the camera. Same thing with Daniel.
Because I like to do behind the scenes work. And if you are not the person that can be on the forefront and you're afraid to go out there and march and you're afraid to go, to really make your voice heard, then figure out another route to take. And I think that's the most important part, and just mostly staying together. I think as a community more than ever now, we have to stay together. In terms of the Chauvin trial and what will take place after the verdict, much like Daniel, I'm still processing that. I am preparing myself for the very worst, given everything that we have already seen and experienced thus far. But then I also have hope, because this has been the most active trial, like you said in the very beginning, that people have been a part of.
That's right.
From the time that it happened, because we were all home, like people were able to see what was going on. Like this is one of those trials. I mean, but Breonna Taylor was too. But just
yeah. You want to say one more thing before we
close out? On the second question, I didn't answer it.
Go ahead, go for it.
When it comes to like the verdict, this might be kind of more of a hot take.
Yep.
But
that's okay.
We've been peacefully protesting for a long ass time. Okay? Long time. And this isn't like, I'm not just saying Black Lives Matter. I'm saying like the civil rights movement, and it's continued on since segregation laws ended. Something has not been working. And not to say that violence is the answer, but if we keep going this route and just nothing's happening, we need to do something different. You know what I mean?
What is that something different?
I mean,
because we're already doing an okay job killing each other.
Yeah, I mean,
right? So like we're doing an okay job responding to police officers.
Yeah.
What else is there that we could possibly do to help? And I keep characterizing movement and progress by moving the needle, by saying moving the needle. I don't know if there is just a right way of doing it, but do we need to intensify what we're doing?
We need to intensify what we're doing, and I'm not going to say that it's right with rioting and stuff like that, the property damage, the people that get hurt. I'm not going to say it's right, but throughout history, we haven't done things consistently peacefully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we stayed peaceful to try and make, if our founding fathers tried to be like, oh, well, let's just peacefully protest, what do you think the UK would have done to them?
Yeah, and I just want to even more expand on that point. When your oppressor is allowed to determine how you protest, you can never get anywhere.
That's gonna be a quote. I may not give you the credit on that one, but that's a good one. I mean,
seriously.
So we don't control the system. We don't manage it. I always tell people of color, you can never be a racist. You can be prejudiced. We do not control a system, right? And that's a valid point that you bring up. And I mean, I can only think of Wall Street, Black Wall Street, right? On how or when there was a time when we had everything we needed and the government itself shut it down, right? And so this conversation probably can go on for another hour or so, but I want to thank my guests for being here to really help unpack this trial, but also give their perspective on, number one, educating our communities, but number two, providing an opportunity for like a different generation to weigh in on something. But we got people in the background who want to ask questions, and one, let's see. This is very interesting. I'm encouraging staff to talk because this is an uncut inside the room, but they don't want to talk. And the question is, I think the outcome for the verdict, in terms of what the outcome would be on the verdict, I think the outcome will be one different from all others, and here's why. The blue wall was broken during this case. The blue wall in terms of the code within police departments throughout this country, right? That's the blue code. You have the chief and numerous officers calling it what it was, especially the chief of police in Minneapolis. Secondly, they saw what happened across the world on these smartphones, okay? And my prayers is going out to that young lady who actually recorded this and have to live with this, but I hope she I don't know her name, and I know it's all over social media, but the resolve in knowing that she did something right by recording and posting it, because we wouldn't be here today. So kudos to you. And I don't think the world really want, as someone might put it, any more smoke from what has been said and done. So that said, we continue to hold the Floyd family in our prayers. Thank you to Al Sharpton and attorney Ben Crump for their work, and all of the advocates in Minneapolis who continue to provide support. I know that there's a George Floyd Foundation. I forget the correct name of it, but it's on Instagram. You just type it in, it'll come up. But I want to end our segment with just kind of giving some space to Earl Simmons. That's his real name, y'all, but we call him DMX. I don't think these folks here even know who Brianna may know who.
I'm a millennial.
Yeah, she's a millennial with me. But DMX was basically, he took all of us to the basement of our emotions on his irresistible Fresh Off the Boat cameo, and the man who unexpectedly nurtured generations of young people who literally come from nothing, and being able to take that hope, that passion, and that prayer and build on it. And for many generations of people born in the new millennial, just so that you'll know, DMX was known as somebody's angry uncle for his club tracks like Party Up, filled with his very dark voice, raspy voice. He was a Grammy-nominated performer. He was an actor. He had many accolades, and I'm very happy. I don't have a DMX story like a lot of people do, on social media. I have a Mary J. Blige story. I have a few other stories, but I don't have a DMX story. But I listen to his music, and while I couldn't connect with everything that he was talking about, as a black man, and now that I'm older, there was a story that he was telling, not only about his life, but about the lives of the many young people that either looked up to him or came from the same situation that he had come from. So I am praying that we continue to uplift what was good about Earl Simmons, better known as DMX, and also understand that Black mental health is real. And I'll end on this note. I want to hear quickly any of the reflections that you all might have. But what really disturbs me, and I just have to say this, is DMX was alive just about 2 weeks ago, okay? And I don't remember the last post or a picture reflecting how great of a man he was, right? And naturally, we all want to post it. We want to, rest in heaven, rest in peace, and all this other stuff. But what happened when he was alive? I know it's a moot point, and now we should celebrate, which we will continue to do. But there are so many other people still alive that we should be celebrating. So continue to celebrate Earl Simmons, DMX. But there's a list of Black artists, hip-hop leaders, and rappers that we should be posting and celebrating and reviving their careers and ensuring that that long, rich culture and history that we love, we continue to move forward. So I'm just going to leave the mic there. I ain't going to drop it because we got to pass it on. But that really just works my nerves a little bit. But, we love you, and we'll continue to pray for the Simmons family. Anybody? And then we'll close out.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Okay.
Rest in peace to DMX. I will say my mother's, she was the biggest fan of DMX. The biggest fan of DMX.
Are you serious?
So I hope that they're together and having concerts and wants to have you. So I definitely rest in peace to the both of them.
Are you old enough to?
I know.
With my dog. DMX. Go ahead.
Well, when I want to take it to a different kind of sense. DMX, from what I know, he struggled from drug addiction.
Yep.
And a lot of misconception that people have about drug addiction is that it's some sort of choice. You know what I mean? I think that it should be treated like a mental illness because that's what it is.
It is, yeah.
And a lot of people, a lot of big people in the rap community have been taken by this, but a lot of people that we all know, you know what I mean, from family members and everything like that, have been taken from this mental illness
that we don't really talk about.
That we don't talk about, and we need to bring awareness
that's
to
another
it.
episode. Lord have mercy. All right, so listen, we're gonna make sure we bring Isaiah. Thank you for being here, Daniel, Brianna. As always, thank you for joining us inside the room, where we discuss politics, leadership, and culture. Until next time, peace, and I love you.